Today's webinar is being presented by Regan Fitzgerald. Regan serves as a consultant to the Behavioral Services Department at the Johnson Center. She earned her bachelor's degree in psychology and Spanish from the University of Texas at Austin and has a master's degree in special education with an emphasis in autism intervention from the University of North Texas. She is a board-certified behavioral analyst with over 12 years of experience. She has had the opportunity to work with children on the autism spectrum from ages 18 months through adolescence. She has served as a moderator for a social skills group for teenagers with Asperger's syndrome, worked as an in-home ABA therapist and consultant in Texas and California, and was a case manager at an inclusive private preschool. In addition, she has served as the only behavioral analyst in one of the largest school districts in Texas, where she oversaw the district's first implementation of applied behavioral analysis. Regan, in conjunction with Studio Movie Grill, initiated a program to host private screenings for children with special needs and their families, a program that is now offered at all DFW and Houston Studio Movie Grill locations and is now expanding nationwide. Regan is an active member in many professional organizations and has presented many workshops and presentations at various regional and national conferences. Before we begin this presentation, please note that questions can be typed into your control panel throughout the presentation, and time permitting, they'll be addressed at the end. Also, for those of you that have requested copies of the presentation, we cannot send out the slides. However, we do post recordings of all of our free webinars on the Johnson Center YouTube channel. Please search for us on YouTube and subscribe to get full access to all of our recorded webinars. If you are seeking a certificate of attendance for this webinar, please note that a link to complete a short quiz will pop up at the end of the presentation, and upon completion, a certificate will appear from you. Now please welcome Regan.
Hello, I'm Regan Fitzgerald, and I'm going to be talking to you today about toilet training. I know many of you are probably overwhelmed with the thought of it. People think, you're crazy. Why do you like to do that? But it really doesn't have to be as overwhelming and as daunting as it might seem. So I hope everyone can hear me well right now. All right. So first things first, when we're talking about toilet training, and that is that there is really a very distinct difference, especially with children with special needs, in your daytime toileting and nighttime toileting. And also, there's a really big difference in elimination versus defecation. And when we say elimination, we're meaning urinating, and defecation meaning bowel movements. For this presentation, there's a combination of resources at the end that you can refer to that I use in really creating this presentation. But some of them involve Richard Fox and Azrin, their toilet training procedures, as well as the potty training your child in less than a day, and toilet training persons with disabilities, a rapid program for day and nighttime independent toileting. Toilet training can take a considerable amount of effort and attention at the beginning in this type of format that I'm going to present to you. But what I want to remind everyone at the beginning, and so you can have it in your head the whole time, is that it truly is worth it in the end to put the time and attention in initially, the effort, into the consistency and really focusing on this as a priority, because in the end you're going to actually spend less time overall working on it because it will be taken care of and it won't be an ongoing process that you have to work on for years and years. I run into people all the time, special needs, not special needs, everyone, different ages, that they're like, oh, we're potty training. how long have you been potty training? A year. It should not have to take a year, and it should not have to encompass that much of your life. So hopefully this will help you to avoid getting in that rut. And if you are already in that rut, hopefully this will give you a kickstart to turn it around. Okay, so we want to make sure that we talk about the difference in daytime and nighttime toileting. There's definitely, this presentation focuses on daytime toileting. The nighttime toileting is different from individual to individual, and honestly, it might not happen at the same time. So throughout this whole presentation, just know that rather than looking at such the overwhelming possibility of all of it at once, we're going to focus on something. Once you have that taken care of, it's going to be a lot easier to address the nighttime toileting separately when the individual's body is actually ready for that. Okay. The first question that you really want to ask yourself is your child ready? And you want to be honest with yourself. You want to not, I mean, we all look at it and we're like, oh, but my child's ready just because you're ready. But it's not necessarily the case. And I've seen more problems arise when people try to potty toilet train an individual that's not ready, um, versus waiting until they're ready. I mean, I even, to be honest, I've experienced the difference with myself. I've got two daughters, and one of them, my first one, I wanted her to be one of the first people potty trained because I felt like that was um, something I should have as a daughter who was potty trained early. And to be honest, she has low muscle tone, and it was going to be more difficult for her. And I wish I had just listened to what I know and done it and applied it to myself, because it would have made it a lot easier. So, is your child ready? You're going to be looking at a couple different factors. One thing is the chronological age. So that's your typical, the normal amount of years that your child has been alive from birth. You really don't want to expect that before 2 or 2.5 years chronologically that they're going to be ready for toilet training. But you also want to look at the developmental age. That's what's really important. You want to make sure that at their developmental level, the child is able to hold their urine for 1 hour at least. If they physically cannot hold it that long, it's going to be much more difficult to have them toilet trained, because they're going to be going to the bathroom so often that it's going to be harder on you than if you were changing diapers. And you also want to make sure that your child shows awareness that they know that they're voiding, that they're eliminating. So, your child might not have any language, but if they're looking down every time they go to the bathroom, or they come to you and they've taken off their diaper or their pull up and they bring it to you, those are great signs. Or they get wet and then they are crying or whining or something where they don't want it on them. That means they're aware of it as well. You also want to see about, like, if they have self-stimulatory behavior that might be getting in the way, like their inability to stay seated for 10 minutes at a time, 15 minutes at a time, then you might have trouble with them sitting on the toilet, really focusing and waiting for it to come. So that would be another thing you would want to make sure you have going for you. But you also don't want to wait too long, because if you wait past, let's say, 5 years old, then you actually could be creating a history of reinforcement of behavior the way it is in the pull-ups or the diapers or however you've been doing it. And then you've got a bigger behavior problem to deal with. So you want to try, if you have these different characteristics or traits in place that your child's ready, you really want to try to get it done before 5. But the things that you don't need, which a lot of people are confused about, is you don't need to have vocal speech. A child does not need to be able to talk to be toilet trained. They don't need to actually have social praise and pleasing others as a rewarding factor for them. And really, the cognitive ability is not important either. We can behaviorally teach around those different circumstances. You want to make sure you've got minimal compliance issues because the process is going to involve a lot of compliance that you're going to need the child to do what you're wanting them to do. And if you are fighting compliance, you are going to make it aversive. It's going to become a less positive experience, and then you might have more issues to deal with than you had initially. So that would be another very, very, very important aspect of your child's readiness. And then finally, just the physical independence of being able to pull their pants up and down. If you are having to do that for them, you are so involved in the process that it's going to be hard to gain that independence. And it's going to be more of a task for the child to go to the toilet and do this, that we might see some avoidance and escape behavior as well. When you start toilet training, you want to be prepared. Preparation is going to be a really, really large aspect of this process. If you are not prepared, you're going to become stressed, your child's going to feel your stress, and it's going to make the whole situation much more difficult. So here's some things that you want to have. You would like to have about 10 to 15 pairs of underwear on hand. You don't want your child wearing pants. You want them to start out without their pants on, just their underwear. You don't want really like tight elastic waistbands or anything like that. Um, you will want a low stool that might be helpful in supporting your child while they're sitting on the toilet. It also might be helpful for them to be able to have the independence of getting on and off the toilet themselves as well. Uh, a potty chair or a seat attachment are both items that you might use. You don't have to. They've got so many different kinds now. They have the external potty seats that play music. They've got the seats that you just put on top of the toilet that are like cushiony. They've got all kinds of characters on them. You can also find now they have these seat attachments that are actually like just look like your toilet. I mean, they're just like another lid that flips up, but it's smaller than the main lid, and so you can just attach it to there and leave it there actually. That's another new item that's out. And then they even have portable little potty seats that you can take in your car with you. You can take when you're going in public. So all kinds of items that are out there now. You also want to make sure you have plenty of your child's favorite beverage because we're going to be using that as well. And some sort of small edible type treat or salty food, something that's going to help them be thirsty and want to drink more because we're going to be doing that. Then you're going to want your reinforcers, your high rewards, your, really those items that are going to be really reinforcing. So whatever this is what you're going to want to deprive your child of for a couple weeks before you actually start the process, at least. It might be a big toy, might be an activity they like to do or go to. If they're good at token systems, and they're able to wait, then you could actually do those activities more often. Just any highly preferred item that you can use solely for toilet training. I mean, I've even had where we make like a treasure chest of all kinds of things, like taken the child to the store at Target, and we went through the aisles and picked out different things that we put in this chest. So you want to get creative and really think high, big time. You want about 2 kitchen timers that have a minute and seconds because we're going to need to be going to do different things on intervals. You will have data sheets, and I have them attached here as well to this. And so I will be going and I'll show you that as well when we're there. And, if you can make your own data sheet, you can write on paper, but it'll show you the information you're going to want to be recording. And finally, a big one, you want to have a free weekend. I really like the whole intensive part of getting it going in one weekend. And so this protocol leads you to be able to have a child mostly schedule trained within a weekend. And so when I say a free weekend, I mean nothing. There should be whatever, this is priority, everything takes a back seat. There's no plans, there's no places you have to go. I mean, if you have other kids, I usually arrange for them to be somewhere else so they're not in the home. You are 100% focusing on the toileting. And I would allow, honestly, overall, a total of, a week or two for the total toilet training process. But you will not believe how much you can actually get done in a weekend. Uh, so here's a couple rules that we want to go by. And this is just so that you can really keep these things in the back of your head at all times. Once you start this process, never, ever, ever wear diapers again, except for at bedtime at night. It's hard. It is difficult. It's not fun. I'm a parent too. I know it's not fun, but that is going to be a really, really, really essential aspect to this process. And you also want to make sure that throughout the process you are careful and do not punish or scold the child for any bowel accidents. Uh, Bowel movements are, you want to be extremely careful with them because you don't want to create any behaviors having to do with holding bowel movements too long, or it can cause more problems medically than it's worth. So you want to just be careful that you are really neutral when it comes to the bowel accidents. And then another thing, it's not a rule in the sense that you have to do it, but it's a really, really, really recommended that you train girls and boys to start urinating sitting. You can always teach the boy to stand later, but you're going to have more success in this protocol that I have if you are training them while sitting down. In order to know how to really arrange your plans for toileting, you're going to need to take some baseline data. And I recommend doing that for 1 to 2 weeks. You might see what you're looking for in terms of patterns of when your child goes to the bathroom in a few days or a week. But sometimes we have trouble finding that, and we have to take data for longer periods to really start to see some sort of pattern. But these patterns are what is going to help us in our toileting protocol. And then you will use a data sheet to do this. And I'm going to flip out, go and show you if I can. Here is the data sheet that I have on here, and if you look, it's divided up by 15-minute increments down the far left column. So the if you look at each column is a different day of the week. You can do Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, going across. And so at 6 o'clock, you would check your child and you would see if they are dry, if they urinated, or if they had a bowel movement, and you would circle it. And you would do that all the way through the day for as long as you're taking that data. And that way we can see when it's happening. Now, you're not going to do this and wake them up when they're sleeping, but otherwise, all the other times of the day, you do want to. And you might even make like a little star next to the time periods when they ate, because you can then see maybe there's patterns when they go to the restroom or urinate or have a bowel movement in connection to eating. So that'd be another thing to maybe document off to the side. But this is just an example data sheet. I really recommend that you have it with you at all times, because if you try to remember and go home, like you're out and you're like, oh, I'll write it down when I get home, it's the consistency and the exact nature of your data is not going to be what you want to see. So it's best to always have it with you. Even if you have to have multiple sheets where you have one in the car and one in the house and one in every room of the house, you might have to do that and then combine and transfer them together. But really making sure you take the data at that time. Okay, I'm going to go back here we go. So start with a potty party. You want to get excited about this because I call it a potty party because not just because of the double P's, but also because it needs to be a party. And that is the essential part of that. I put on there a half day, but really it depends on your child. You might be able to do a potty party in an hour or two. Some people it's taken a whole day. But the potty party is where you are going to start really conditioning the bathroom and the potty to be fun. Because just automatically dragging a child into the bathroom to go to the bathroom and spend a lot of time in there and sit on the toilet and wait and wait and try, it can be very aversive. And so we want it to be fun. We want it to be reinforcing where the child wants to be in the bathroom because we're going to be spending a lot of time in the bathroom initially. Um, so at this point, you might even you want to bring in lots of their fun toys and things into the bathroom. Now, not necessarily the reward that you're using as your reinforcer, but anything fun that you can come up with that you can bring in there to keep them engaged and occupied and wanting to stay in the bathroom would be what I would do here. And that includes yourself. You're going to be in there too. Pick a bathroom that you have a lot of room in to start this because you're going to want to just be hanging out. I mean, we have had everything. I've seen many DVD players in the bathroom. I've seen, a floor full of every toy from the playroom being brought into the bathroom. I've had people that bought new toys, like maybe their kid loves puzzles and they went and they got new puzzles or borrowed puzzles that the kid's never seen so that there was novelty. That helps as well. Um, this period of time when you're in there, after you've really started to condition it for a few hours or so, you're going to start to teach your child how to eliminate in the toilet, or that eliminating in the toilet is what you're wanting. Because at this point, they might not understand that. And so you could start by taking their clothes off. Maybe they're in their underwear, maybe they're in nothing. You want it to be so easy for them to go on the potty. And at this point, you're going to be giving lots of food, edibles, things. Those are the salty foods, things to get them thirsty so that they'll want to drink a lot. um, and you want to reinforce them also for sitting on the toilet. So basically, every 3 minutes, they're going to sit on the toilet. And when they do that, you're going to reinforce. You're going to give them more edibles. You're going to praise them. You're going to just really interact with them. You are going to be happy that they're on there so that they want to sit there. Our hope is that by feeding lots of salty foods, which leads to lots of liquid, and them not being in clothing, that you're going to be, and going on, sitting on this potty so often that they're going to be able to just catch urination in the toilet. So they're not going to probably purposefully be going to the bathroom in there because they don't really know yet. But by sitting there with setting it up to where they have to pee because they've had so much fluid and they're sitting on the toilet so often, we're hoping that we're going to just get it in there by accident. And then we're going to be able to reward with our big reward for going in the toilet. This is how we're going to teach and show the child that this is a good thing, that this is what we do on the toilet. Otherwise, you start to see the people who have taken their kids a lot and they're like, oh, they'll go sit on the potty all the time. They love it, but they've never really peed in the potty. They left this part out. This is a really important part initially to make it speed up and move along and let them know what it is you're wanting to do. It gives them the chance to be successful. Once they eliminate, you have a circus. You provide that reinforcer. You are the most excited. It's awesome. Then they get their 10-minute break. Because most likely, if they really did eliminate and you made them get it all out as much as possible, then you're good for the next 10 minutes. Hopefully, they're not going to go and have an accident. They still might, but that's when you give them that 10-minute break out of the bathroom, off of the toilet, off of the intervals. Sometimes you also want to make sure that while you're sitting on the toilet while the child's there, that you're a little careful on how much your excitement is, depending on the individual. Some students, you get so excited when they start going because that's just our nature. We're so excited, and they freeze. They like get shocked or scared a little bit, overwhelmed, and then they stop, and then you can't get them to release the rest of what they had to eliminate in the toilet. So careful of that. After your potty party is when you move to your first phase of the toilet training. And this is where you are going to basically be starting to get your child's schedule trained. And what we mean by that is that they're going to learn to stay dry and go to the bathroom on regular intervals that you take them. So the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to look at your baseline data. See when on that data sheet, you want to look and see how often your child is going to the bathroom. If they are urinating every hour, then in order for them to be successful, we're going to want to take them to the bathroom to try in smaller intervals than an hour. Um, so you're going to want to look at where they are on that data to determine your very first interval length that you're going to start with. It's usually about 1 hour, hour and a half, every hour, hour and a half that you take them, like 90 minutes. But some children I know do not stay dry for more than 45 minutes, and so that's what we started with. You're going to still be providing liquids and salty foods like every 30 minutes, just to keep them still making sure we have fluid in us, but yet not too much fluid. And that kind of sometimes takes an adjustment to figure out exactly how your child's going to do best with that. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to take on that interval that you decided on that was appropriate for your child is you're going to start taking your child to the toilet now at every interval of that amount of time. So if it was 90 minutes, then, if they were going to the bathroom every 2 hours, so I decided to take them every hour and a half at 90 minutes, then at 90 minutes is when my timer is going to go off, and I'm going to set that timer for 90 minutes. It's going to go off, and I'm going to say, it's time to go to the potty, and we're going to go to the potty. And as soon as we finish the potty, we are going to reset our interval so that it starts over again. You can have your timer where you just push one button and it automatically restarts the same interval time. When you're going to the bathroom, you're going to say the same phrase over and over again. So you have a lot of repetitiveness of what you're saying. Something might be, we're going to go pee-pee on the potty. It's time to go pee-pee on the potty. Whatever it is that you're going to say, you want to make sure you're really saying that. When you get there to the bathroom, you're going to praise for dry pants before sitting. Because if they have dry pants, so you're going to check their pants and you're going to say, have them check them. So you're going to have them touch their underwear and see that they're dry. If they're dry, you say, that's right, you've got great dry pants. That's right, wow. So they're starting to see that that's when it feels like that, that's good. And then you're going to put them on the toilet and you're going to sit there for 10 minutes. So you might have to do some things to keep them there fun. That's why, again, we want the toilet to be positive because we want them to be able to sit there for enough time to hopefully try to go to the bathroom. Many times I have to do different things like turn on the water, tickles, things like there might be some things you got to do at first to get them to really eliminate, but you don't want to do anything so overwhelming that they're not paying attention to their bodily cues. If the child eliminates while they're on that 10 minutes, then you're going to praise and provide that reinforcement that you have set aside for toileting, and you're going to restart your timer. If they do not eliminate, though, then we know they still need to go. So we're going to get up, but we're going to restart our timer for less time than the last interval. So if it was 90 minutes initially, we're going to set it for 30 minutes less to 60 minutes, and we're going to go again. And if they don't go that next time, you're going to do it to 30 minutes. Because we know that if they haven't gone, it's going to be less and less time before they have to go again. You want to make sure on your reinforcer, I think I mentioned this before, but whatever your big reinforcer is, you want to make sure that you've been deprived of it, that you're giving it to them immediately after they go in the toilet so that you're really reinforcing exactly what you want to reinforce. That's really important as well. And if you have a child that is not vocal, that doesn't have language, you can still do this. You're going to be, though, when you're walking to the potty, you might be saying, it's time to go potty, it's time to go potty, but you're also maybe providing, if your child communicates with sign, you might be providing the sign as well. So you're modeling that, and they get to see that that means that they're going to the bathroom. If they're using a picture exchange system, you might, oh, it's time to go to the bathroom, and you help them to exchange the picture on their system for going to the bathroom. The other part of phase one is that we're going to be doing what we call dry pants checks. I know all these terms are kind of crazy that we make up. But dry pants checks, you're going to do this during phase one and phase two, which we haven't gotten to yet, obviously. But every 5 minutes, you might do 10 depending on your child, because some kids don't want to be bothered every 5 minutes. Depending on the situation, this is where it might need to be individualized, but you're going to, on specific intervals, check to see if they're dry. The same way you did when you first got to the toilet, that's what you're going to be doing. So your second timer is being used for these intervals, these shorter intervals. So you have a timer for going to the potty, and you have a timer for your dry pants. You'll, again, every 5 minutes, you'll check and say, oh, you hear the beep on the timer, you bring it to them, they hear it. Have the child put their hands on the front and the back of their underwear to see that they're dry. If they are, provide a small, tangible, or edible reinforcer. So it's smaller than the one that they're getting for their toilet training, actually on the potty, but it's still something that's a reinforcer. So many times the easiest thing is an edible because it's consumable and it's gone, because you're going to need to do it again in 5 minutes. A good thing is usually maybe not a candy per se, because we don't want to be feeding them candy all day unless they're okay with really, really small candies like Nerds or something little. You don't want to be doing a Starburst where they have to chew it up and it takes a long time. Or maybe it's just a snack like a pretzel, or it might be they love doing airplane with you. I know I had a kid once that really enjoyed going up and doing, on your feet, doing airplane, and we used that every 5 minutes. They'd get to do it one time if they were dry. So there's all kinds of ways that you can get creative with your small dry pant reinforcer. And after that, you'll set that timer again for 5 more minutes, the same way you did with your other timer. When you finish phase one, which I want to remind you might be in a day, it might be 2 days. Everybody's a little different. I mean, I've got some kids that I got all the way through phase one and phase two within the weekend, but there were some kids that phase one took even longer than the weekend. So just because I say, oh, you can do it in a weekend, doesn't mean it's going to happen for every individual like that. So please be patient, be patient, be patient. You're going to have to just really look for the success that you're having to keep you going. Phase two, though, is where now the child is pretty much, we're going to start to make that 90-minute interval, whatever it was, we're going to start to expand it so that they can go longer periods of time without having to be taken to the restroom. Because obviously that's not so sustainable to be able to take your child every hour to the toilet. So now we're going to work on lengthening that schedule. You don't want to do this until your accidents are occurring at the most once a day. So that's why it might take more than a day or two, because you might need to see that your accidents are just they're not occurring anymore. Now, if you're still having accidents all the time, you're not going to want to jump to phase two yet. At this point, you're going to gradually be adding 15 to 30 minutes to your schedule. And as there go a whole day with success at 15 minutes added, then you'll add another 15 or 30 minutes the next day. This is also when we're going to increase our dry pants check interval. So now, rather than the 5 or 10 minutes, you can change it to 15 or 20 minutes so that you're not doing that as often either. The thing we're going to add in at this point, though, is positive practice, and I'm going to get into that in a minute. And that is something that we're going to do when your child does have an accident. So in phase one, when there's an accident, you do nothing. You say, oh, we're wet, and you clean them up, and you move on. But at phase 2, I'm going to actually show you what you're going to do. Um, if you see that as you're expanding your intervals to 30 more minutes, an hour more, that the accidents really started to increase, and they correspond with that increasing of interval, um, then you're going to want to go back. And so make those trips shorter again and get really consistent at that amount of time and then gradually increase again. Because you don't want to keep increasing when they're having more and more accidents. Because here is what we're going to be doing with the accidents. And after you read this, you'll know, okay, well, yeah, I don't want to have to do this procedure more than necessary. So this is called positive practice. And what it is that your child is going to be, when they have an accident, we want them to practice where they're going to go potty. So we want them to, rather than being punished for something or, making it really negative, we do want them to see that there are natural consequences. There are reasons that we want them to stay dry and eliminate in the toilet. And this is how they're going to learn that. You're going to, when you see that they had an accident, you're going to walk from where they had the accident or where you caught them being wet. And in a neutral tone, not mad, not angry, but not lots of silliness and happiness and none of this, babying, just real neutral. We go pee pee in the potty. Whatever it is that you're saying is that you tell them when you're walking to the potty, you want to say that here. You might be TT, might be pee pee, whatever your words are. We go blank in the potty, and you repeat it in a neutral tone all the way to the toilet. When he gets to the toilet, he pulls his wet pants down, and you can even say while he's pulling, ew, yucky, wet pants, yucky, because you want them to know that wet is yucky. That's not good. You're not mad. You're not disapproving. You're just letting him know, matter of fact, that this is yucky to be wet. But he needs to be pulling the pants down. You can hand over hand for compliance at first, help them to pull them down, but their hands need to be the ones touching the wet pants and pulling them down. Then they sit on the potty. Um, they're not necessarily urinating. They're just sitting on the potty and they're practicing. And so when they sit on the potty, you say, we go pee pee on the potty. And then they get down, they pull up their pants, and you go back to the place where you had found them wet or they had the accident, and you do it again. And you do that 5 times. So this is going to take some time, but this is all the things that we do when we have to clean up an accident. If a child doesn't have to do any of this, then there's no reason that they would try to stay dry, because what does it do to them? It's not inconveniencing them. And especially if you have a child that's on the autism spectrum who has social deficits and theory of mind where they can't put themselves into the other person's place and position, then they're really not going to see, oh, I'm really inconveniencing my mom by having wet pants. So we need to teach them and show them that. And so you will continue to do this. You want to make sure when you're doing this whole process that we don't give too much attention, like eye contact and interaction. It's just real matter of fact, get through it, do it, and be done. Because if we do too much at this time with them, it can become almost rewarding if they're getting a lot of attention. They start to see that, wow, okay, if you think about it, you're spending a lot of time in the bathroom. And so what I see is a lot of parents, as soon as we start this, when they're in phase 2, we tend to start doing our normal routines a little more. And we're doing things. We're, doing things around the house, all these different things, and we're not attending to them as much as we were just before when we were at the other phases. And so now they find, oh, well, as soon as I have an accident, I get all this attention, whether it's negative or neutral or whatever. If it's attention, that can maintain it. So you really want to be careful with how you do this, that it's just real neutral and no eye contact or extra attention. Once they do the whole positive practice, you want to make sure that the child goes up and cleans up the mess where the accident occurred. Not you. You want them to go, and if you have to, hand over hand, you're doing the motion, having their hand clean it up, but they should clean the floor, the potty, whatever there is, and then they need to take their clothes to the laundry. And then you want to help them to put their clothes back on if needed. You want to make the getting dressed part again positive, because we don't want to be associated with negativity of having dryness on. So we want to be positive, put it on, make it easy and quick, and be done. During phase 2, a lot of times what you'll see is that as you're gradually increasing that interval of time that you're taking them, many kids will just independently um, will independently initiate at this point. And you're like, oh my gosh, they just initiated. Whoa, I wasn't expecting that. And so many times you don't have to teach them that at this point. Now, some kids we're going to have to actually go through a process to teach it. But your kid might at this point initiate, and you immediately, big time reinforcement, really increase that reinforcement for that. Really positive practice should be something that you might have to do for longer. It might be 2 days. It might be 1 day. But just know that it's not a punishment. It is just showing the natural consequences. Now, if you see your child as they're urinating, okay, so they're having an accident, but you catch them in the act, immediately try to take them to the potty and see if you can just race in there and get something in the potty. Because if you can get something in the potty, even though they had an accident partly, you would still want to do that rather than positive practice. Because then if they do that, you don't want them to do the positive practice. You want to clean it up, and you want to reward them. They should still get their reward. Because for anything that goes in that potty, it needs to be a reward, positive, overly reinforcing. Now, I mentioned how certain children will start initiating or will during that time when you're lengthening the schedule. Once that initiation or independent, you see the kid, they just went to the bathroom on their own, and you were like, wait, he's in the bathroom? He did that by himself? Once that occurs, that's when your scheduling stops. So regardless of what's going on at that point, once they've initiated, you stop taking them on schedules because now you're going to withdraw a lot of that adult involvement, and you're going to wait for them to initiate. You might see an increase in accidents at this time because you're not taking them on intervals anymore, and they're needing to learn that, oh, I can't be dependent on somebody to take me. So at that point, you might see an increase in accidents. Just keep up your positive practice. Keep that up. And you can continue to do your dry pants checks, but just keep increasing those interval of times. And eventually you can just withdraw your tangible reinforcer for those dry pants checks. You might even at this point, or actually you would, since you're stopping the scheduling, you would remove that timer. So now you've really only got one timer you're dealing with, and it's for the dry pants. Just know that at this point, accidents are not a regression. And I hear that, oh, he's regressing. Oh my gosh, we had him dry every day, and now he's having accidents. It's not a negative thing. It is not a regression. It is part of the process of learning to initiate and learning how to tell their body signs. So you're basically doing two things in this process. You are increasing elimination in the toilet, and you are decreasing accidents. When you're increasing elimination in the toilet, the ways that you're really affecting that are potty parties, delivering liquids, and putting them on the potty on those intervals to reinforce and reward the elimination. Okay? So that's what, if you're having issues with them actually going in the potty and getting it and actually it's not really the accidents, but you're having trouble when you take them, they don't necessarily go on cue. This is what you're going to look at modifying and making different changes to. But if what you're seeing is they do go when you take them to the bathroom, but they're still having accidents, then you're looking at modifying your positive practice or your dry pants checks. Now, during your toilet training, that handout again with the data, you want to make sure that you're taking that data during your toileting training too. So You want to still maintain that data process. Leave it in the bathroom so that it's there and you can record it every time, because that's how you're going to be able to look and see what needs to change. I hope everyone can hear me. I think it said that my audio went out, but now it seems to say it's back on. So hopefully it is. So you want to continue with your data so that you can see when you need to make those little modifications and changes, that you have that to go back to. At the beginning, I discussed the fact that bowel movements are different than eliminating in the toilet. And so I want to touch a little bit on bowel movements. I'm not going to go into great depth. It might take some individualization for your specific child. But if there's any concerns about bowel movements, I would definitely, the first thing you need to do is seek professional help, medical help, to rule out any issues that might be interfering, like diarrhea, irregularity of constipation, unusual gas. There might be some other medical interventions that could help that and make the whole toilet training process easier. I know, for example, my daughter who has low muscle tone, she has difficulty with constipation because of that. And so we've had to do a lot of different, we've had to do some medical intervention in order to help that not be an issue that's holding her back from being potty trained. You'll want another really special reinforcer, most likely for bowel movements. But really remember to be neutral about BM accidents and just clean them up and move on. Some kids will just naturally become trained with bowel movements. I've got some kids, they're going in there, they're going to eliminate and urinate, and while they're there, the bowel movement comes out. And then after that, they realize that's where they go. We got really overly excited, and they were trained. So it could be very different for each child. But we don't want to cause more difficulties and medical problems and constipation. So just be careful with your reaction to bowel movement accidents. If your child with bowel movements, if it goes in the, if like your child is one of those children who only goes in their diaper or only in their undies, like I've got some kids, they purposely want to go only in that pull up. And so you've got parents who I see, they're like, okay, well, I know they need to go to the bathroom. And so then we put the pull up on and they go in the corner and they go to the bathroom. If that's the case, then there's a couple different things that you can do. One of the ones that I've had the most success with, interventions, is by having them sit on the potty with that pull up or underwear on that they've had. And gradually, at first they're going to go to the bathroom in that pull up while sitting on the toilet. The next time we go, we might, if they are successful, I'd make a little hole in the pull up. And they'd go. And then the next time, a little bigger hole. And I gradually make that hole bigger and bigger in the pull up until it drops in the toilet. And then you can even gradually make the part around their waist smaller and smaller until they see, wow, I am going in the toilet. So you can gradually fade that to get them to do that. If you know that your child has bowel movements at a certain time, then you can, by your data, you can take them to the bathroom at that time and try to get it on the toilet. Another thing with bowel movements, sometimes I've got the children who they'll go, they have to be alone, or they have to be in a certain room, and so we would use one of those potty chairs for that. So there's all ways that you can figure it out. It just might take some individualization to figure it out. We all make mistakes when toilet training, and I don't even know if I should call it mistakes. We all do things that might make it more difficult for the process. So I wanted to make sure that I mention these because they're things that you want to keep in mind. And then if you're aware of them, you can notice it when you do it and try to change it. One is taking your child too frequently. Many times people start to they want to avoid an accident, so they take them so frequently that then the child never is having to learn to hold it. Or the even bigger than that is when you're taking your child to the potty when it appears they need to go. So some people will say, "Oh, my child's potty trained," but they're looking and watching their child. They see the signs like the fidgeting or the way they're standing, so then they take them, and then the child goes. That's really not them being toilet trained. That's you being trained to notice their signs. So we want to let them learn to control their body, and the only way they'll be able to do that is if we take them on these schedules and we follow this consistent, systematic intervals rather than just taking them when they appear they need to go. You've got to basically allow accidents. And if you take them when they appear they need to go, then you're not allowing the accidents. The accidents are the way they're going to learn. So don't be so hesitant to allow that to happen within the protocol. Um, Another big one, using diapers when you're on long outings or in the car or even at naps. This is very, very troublesome. I know it's inconvenient. I'm a mom too. It is very, very inconvenient to be out in public and in a car ride and have to find a way to get them to go to the bathroom. It's not easy. Having accidents in the car, I know, is very distressing, especially when your child is sitting in a car seat and you're like, okay, every time they have an accident, I have to clean the whole car seat. Um, but you would rather deal with that for this short period of time than have your child having to wear diapers indefinitely when you go in the car or on a long outing or out in public. Um, it's just, sometimes the fear of humiliation and all that is what keeps us from keeping underwear on, but you really, really cannot make that exception. And the reason I say it naps is something I found over the years that if you put a pull up on at nap, what they tend to do, the child starts to see, oh, well, they tend to wait and have bowel movements at nap time purposely. Or they hold it all day, their urine, and then they pee a lot at nap time. And then all you're teaching them is to hold it until nap. And you've still got to toilet train through naps. Another one is being hesitant with the positive practice. Please be comfortable knowing that as long as you're neutral, you are not being aversive or punishing, you're teaching. We want to also make sure that we judge our success on data. Look at the data, make your decisions based upon that data. If they went from 3 accidents to 2 accidents the next day, it's success. It might not be toilet trained yet, but it's success. So you really want to look and notice that success. And then the last thing is inconsistency. We have got to remain consistent. The fewer people involved in the process, the less distractions you have, the more likelihood you're going to be consistent. Okay. Make sure that throughout this whole process that you are persistent. It's so easy to give up, and it's so easy to say, my child's just not ready. Be persistent. That doesn't mean be negative. That doesn't mean be punishing, but be persistent. Even children that have the most profound issues can successfully be toilet trained. So know that. That and that it's so important to increase their independence. This is the starting block for so much more. I've seen some kids that all of a sudden they were toilet trained, and it's like everything exploded. They learned so many things after that in other realms, academics, language, because their independence increased their self-esteem. Um, and it's a good introduction to many other self-help skills as well. Okay, I wanted to thank you then. Concludes my presentation. Thank you for your time and your attention. If you want, I'm going to, if you want more information, you can go to www.johnson-center.org. For certificates of attendance, there's a web address there as well if you would like that. I'm going to take a little bit of time to look over some questions that I've received, and I will be back shortly to answer them. Okay, I am back. I hope that everybody can hear me. I'm pretty sure it says my mic's on. Okay, I had a few questions that I wanted to answer, and if there's still more after this, you can send some questions to, I think there's an email that you can send it to. I will get that to you. Okay, so I had a question that someone said that if their daughter or son is aversive to wearing panties, how can they do this? So I would really focus on the potty party part and that's where they're naked. And so that way you've gotten success and you're kind of going through further in the process while they still don't even have panties on. And then gradually start to require the panties when it's time to go out of the house, because then it can be, well, you want to do this, first we need to put our panties on. So there is nothing wrong with being naked at home if you'd like to do that. Another person had mentioned that, or asked that when leaving the house, I wasn't clear on this, if you don't wear diapers, is it okay to wear pull-ups? And I should have made that clearer. We don't want to wear pull-ups or diapers when you're leaving the house. So once you start the process, it is only underwear when you leave the house. Somebody else had asked that with positive practice, if they seem like they are, dropping to the floor and they're just screaming and upset, do you keep on going? You don't want it to be so aversive that that's what happens. So what you would do at that point is be looking at what you're doing while you're trying to do the positive practice and how it's becoming aversive, so you can make changes to that. So maybe the child 5 times was too much, so maybe you only do it 2 or 3 times. Or maybe it was you didn't realize you were talking to them throughout it and they were feeling your frustration. So it's really looking at those factors. You do want to carry through, if you and make them do it. Another person asked about if you're wanting their child's in school and they're wanting to have an intensive, they want to potty train, but they're worried about the school maintaining the protocol since it's somewhat laboring and intensive. That is the main reason why I start with the intensive weekend and I say have a weekend fully devoted to this, because then you can hopefully, even if you're not to the point of phase 2 or um, finish with phase 1 necessarily, um, by the time they go to school, you can at least, they will follow through with the protocol at that point. I've never really had a school that had an issue with taking a child on intervals um, to the bathroom and doing rewards or dry pants checks. Some people might say they don't use edibles in their school, and you might have to come up with a different reinforcer if that's what you were using. Or some people might have difficulty with the positive practice, and if that's the case, then I really recommend maybe finding a time that you can do it over the summer or on a spring break or winter break, really trying to find one of those longer periods that you're off to do the intensive weekend so that you have more time to get them to a point where it is more manageable in the school. And then one last one I'm going to answer right now is that somebody had mentioned that their child is toilet trained, but that they don't pee in the toilet, they pee on the floor. Um, and I don't fully have clarity on what part they are trained in, if they're schedule trained or if they're initiating, but they'll only stand near the toilet on the floor. But what I would recommend for that is gradually maybe start using a potty chair and they can stand up and pee into the potty chair and then gradually move it closer and closer to the toilet. It's just a suggestion. So hopefully those answers helped, and thank you very much for attending.